Sometimes we just have to ask, why? 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 Why doesn't Facebook work with StreamYard? That's okay because I haven't invested anything into Facebook for the last 3 or 4 years, so I don't really care. But it gives me this error message. And so here I am going live today. Some of y'all had to, so I'm kind of playing with the monetization stuff, guys. Like, because some revenue is helpful for me, but at the same time, if it's annoying and keeps us from having interaction, like the only reason I'm on YouTube really is that it's the best back and forth live conversation. Welcome, Martinson family and Corey. Good to see you. Go ahead and if you are like on and you know what we're about to do, go ahead and let your social networks know if they want to check out a Homestead update or a Homestead chick. They can totally do that by coming to the stream. And then, of course, we'll do it the way we've always done it. I'm going to do my best to take questions on Odyssey over here. It looks like I missed one last week. Oh, no, that was a month ago. Sorry, teeny tiny Homestead, I missed you. But I'll do my best to take it on Odyssey where we're live streaming as well as YouTube. If you're on YouTube, there is a system, David, welcome, called Odyssey, Odyssee. It's kind of like a YouTube alternative. They use a decentralized hosting system, I believe, and they don't you don't get kicked off for having an opinion about sheep or shots or any of those things. As long as you're not I don't know, murdering somebody on screen, you don't get cut off. And even if you are murdering somebody on screen, because of how their hosting is, if you have the direct link to that video, it's just there, right? They can just make it so it doesn't show up on Odyssey. So if you have not checked that out, they've made a lot of improvements this year. Check it out. Happy Friday, Cheetah68. And I don't know how to say your name, sucker. Weenus sucker? That sounds kind of like it rhymes with something. Anyway, so you're probably laughing your butt off now. So we're doing these live streams and I've turned monetization on. And one of the things I noticed is when I put skippable ads, like they just come up. And then if you're like your hands are dirty and you're doing something, you can't skip it until you wash your hands. And that's annoying. So I've turned off skippable ads and I have one non-skippable ad set up at the beginning of this. I think that's a good balance for us when these live streams process. What YouTube does is they automatically put things in the middle. Okay. And I can't turn that off until they do that. And then sometimes it's annoying and it's every 2 minutes. So I do try to remember the next morning to go in and turn that off. So if you're doing the replay watch, you can see that. Anyway, we're going to talk about all sorts of stuff here. I'm going to, Telegram just made a noise and my phone just made me aware it's not on mute. That's actually kind of weird. Boop, boop. We don't want any of that noise coming on. Yeah, we're going to talk about Homestead stuff today. And then after I record the live podcast, which I'm going to do first, I will take your questions. I've invited Holler Neighbors, whoever's available, to come on. And Tactical said he's going to be doing a bunch of stuff outside and in and out. But yeah, Homestead Glamour Girl, this is a thing. YouTube did not notify me. Rude. Yes, you can subscribe and hit the bell button and choose follow all. And you'll be notified when I go live, except when you're not notified when I go live. That's the thing. It also unsubscribes people to the channels that you follow. Sometimes it's happened to me a couple of times. And that is what it is, right? We do the best with what we can. If you want to kind of keep up with what's going on here, it's livingfreeintennessee.com. I have /live where I usually put the information. Totally forgot today. We'll get into the why of that when we go into the Homestead update. There's some things been going on this week. So it's been a very, very busy week, but I'm kind of excited because we're going into the fall. We're getting to Christmas season. It's great. Anyway, let's get this podcast going. If you want to put a question in for the Q&A time, put the first couple words in all caps and I'll star it. And then I can go back through those questions. And of course, we'll eventually get Tactical on, even if I have to text message him. And I don't know if Jenny can join or not, because if she's at work, she can't join. I don't know who's going to hop on. Pretty soon, there are going to be an expanded list of Holler Neighbors who can jump on here. So that should be a fun thing to follow as well. Now, I'm going to go into We're going to try this thing with the music again. Wednesday, I screwed up the music, and that was a sad thing. But it looks like I can start it with the podcast music today. So I'm going to look all professional and stuff. Ready? Let's do this. First, I'm going to do like a really uncomfortable silence so that the audio is easy for me to edit.
The place to be is living free in Tennessee.
Well, welcome everyone to Living Free in Tennessee, where we talk about building the life you choose on your terms. Today is Friday, August 12th, 2022, and this is episode 606 of Living Free in Tennessee. Super excited that we got over the 600 line. We're going to be doing a homestead update today, and it's been a week. There's been a lot going on in the livestock session. We have a lot to talk about, and we're going to give you an update on last week's sick little dam. And we've got some new animals coming on the homestead. That's right. I told you only add one animal a year, and we're adding two. We're breaking our own rules. We'll tell you why. Planning the food forest installation that's happening in October. I just had a long talk with Nick Ferguson about that today. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some late summer bounty. That's all going to happen today. Of course, we're doing this live on YouTube. So those of you on YouTube, if you have questions along the way, we will end the podcast. I'll give a little break, like of 10, 20 seconds, and then I'll start taking your questions. We'll invite the other Holler Neighbors on. Before we jump into the show, I want to remind you, if you want to get a question in or share a frugality tip or just say, hey, this thing's going on in my area, you can email me, Nicole, Nicole, at livingfreeintennessee.com, or go over to livingfreeintennessee.com, click on contact, and those emails come to me. Our first segment today is forage. This is where I talk about what's coming off the land, and I try to not do too much gardening stuff. I tend to do more herbal stuff or stuff that we find out when we're walking. And, I didn't do a lot of walking this week, except for along the road. So this list is pretty short. There's a lot more out there right now, guys. Like, people are getting chanterelle mushrooms and those sorts of things. We're almost into oyster mushroom season again. We'll start getting some fruits off the trees and that sort of thing. That should all be starting to happen. Nuts should be starting to happen in the next few weeks. We're going to get pawpaws here soon. But right now, what we have are elderberries. It's time to harvest them. And people who cultivate sort of more domesticated elderberries have already been doing it here. They've only been coming on the last couple of weeks. So that's an important one for making your elderberry syrup for the winter. And elderberry jelly is pretty delicious, but that's just something you can help as a cold or flu preventative, or if you have it, to help you recover faster. I think the reason that, like, as I've dug into elderberries, they have quercetin in them. So if you're supplementing with quercetin and zinc and you're doing elderberry, you need to look at that amount, because you might be doubling down in a way you don't want to. But I think that's part of what the magic is of the elderberry syrup. I don't know what all the magic is, but that is. We've also got tons of mint, as I mentioned last week. I showed people at the open house my two kinds of mint, and somebody tasted the second one and said, that does not taste like mint. So I'm pretty sure it's catnip. So it looks like we have catnip growing wild in our creek, but that's kind of cool. And then, of course, mint for teas. I've been using primarily herbs from the land around me to overcome some physical challenges I've been having. I made that decision about 2 weeks ago. I was like, wow, this is not passing. Like, what the actual? And I thought, well, I'm in tune with the land here, and the land's in tune with me. I'm going to start using herbal remedies from it, and I'm going to eat only vegetables from here and see if that helps. And I am feeling a little better. So I don't know if it's just time that's done it or these, but I am, yesterday I had a keto dump, toxin dump. So I've been sort of dirty keto for a while, and I was like, I don't feel good. I'm going to go 100%, like all in, no cheats, like nothing. And what that means is that I was probably out of ketosis. And when you go into ketosis, what can happen is you get what's called the keto flu. It's like a headache, you have body aches. But the other thing is, if you have areas of injury, those areas can become inflamed. I have a low back issue. And wow, that was fun yesterday. at 2 o'clock, I ran the bath and I soaked in some Epsom salts and some essential oils. It didn't help. I was like, wow, this is really painful. And then I went out and I got peppermint and I made peppermint tea and it did not fix the problem. But I felt a little better. And again, that's just my experience. I don't know if it's actually doing anything, but it's kind of funny how these things can happen and how when you're learning wild, forageable, edible plants, like there's a spot on my glasses. One will make itself known to you and you'll be like, what's that plant? What's that plant? What's that plant? And then you learn what that plant is and you're like, oh, it helps with vitamin D deficiencies. Huh, I'm vitamin D deficient. Interesting. So be in tune with nature, guys. It's an interesting experience. There are other late summer teas coming on. And of course, like things like mullein and that sort of thing, you can forage all the time. I have a strawberry in the strawberry patch. That was exciting. It's the second coming of the strawberries. And I'm excited about that because I like to have a handful of berries over so often. We've also got watercress back in the creek. It's about this tall, which if you're on the audio, I'm holding my hands up about 8 inches. And so I just cut it at water level and then it makes a really good salad base. And that's good because this time of year in Tennessee, lettuces are not super prolific unless you're growing them inside. So I've got like sweet potato greens. I've got Malabar spinach coming out of the garden. And then I've got watercress. And I have this like cabbage that's been sitting in my fridge for 3 weeks that I bought at the farmer's market that I can augment with. And then there's cucumbers and tomatoes and all those sorts of things. So we did a great cucumber salad last night with basil from the garden instead of dill. And it's sort of like the German recipe where you do onions and vinegar or lemon juice and then like this whole creamy sauce, and you can use sour cream or mayonnaise and dill and garlic in the German recipe. I know, but I didn't have dill I wanted to put in there, so I just used basil instead, and it was delicious. I think the key to that one is more garlic is better. That should be a t-shirt. More garlic is better. I mean, it protects you against vampires and it tastes delicious. Okay, so that's what we're foraging. Next segment is livestock. This is where we will probably spend the most time talking. And it's time. The first year of a new animal is challenging. Ducks, chickens, less challenging. Rabbits, less challenging. Bigger animals, pigs, sheep, I'm sure cows, I've never tried a cow, more challenging. Goats, way more challenging. And when we advise people who move to Tennessee who are having a new homestead, we tend to say do one thing a year because you'll have to get used to it. Like bees, challenging. I still haven't harvested honey this year because I can't go into my own hives and I don't have anybody to help me do that. And I'm allergic to bees now. Don't want to risk getting stung. And when you're robbing honey, that's a good time to get stung. So if anybody wants to come out rob honey, I'll split it with you. Anyway, sheep have been roughly 4 times the work we thought they'd be. And it has stopped all other forward projects here. I have been doing the gardens by myself. I was expecting to have help. I've done the best I can do. That's why I started the Garden 30 live stream. We will do another one of those probably tonight. There's a reason I haven't done it that I shared in the email newsletter that went out last night. I'm also taking a week off this month. So sheep, they're 4 times the work. 4 times the work. Guess what's happening now? The female sheep and the male sheep need to be separated. So there's going to be hijinks of us separating these animals. And somebody was like, why would you separate them? Because the girls are pregnant and we're getting close to time for them to reproduce, like to give birth. And they're due around the 1st of September. So it's 2 weeks early, just in case anything comes early. We're moving the girls over here and leaving the boys over at the barn pasture. And that's going to be a fun little process we've never done before. But that's why we're doing it. And then the boy sheep will be over there. And pretty soon it's time for the boy sheep to be graduated, except for the ones that we're using for the next batch of lambs. I still think they look a little skinny, so we're going to work on that. And that's going to be, if we have a third person around when we separate them, we're totally going to try to capture this one on video because it might be funny. Just separating them, and then I got to lead the girls down the road 0.2 of a mile. Like, I'm tempted to put a car parked on either side of this so nobody can come through, and just lead them down the road. But we will see how that goes. It ought to be fun. And then hopefully birthing goes well, and I'll have lots of pictures of cute little lambs for y'all to see. But that also means we have to have like double minerals, double salt licks, like all of that stuff set up, double shelter. And then Tactical is going to be rotating sheep in 2 properties at once. Luckily, there's only 3 girls here who rotate, so they won't necessarily go through the paddocks as quickly, but we're trying to keep them here long enough that the birthing happens here and not back off site again. It's actually an argument, Tactical, for running them back through base camp before we could do here, but we will see what happens this weekend. Tippy, who I talked to you about last week, where I had the veterinarian in, who has completely changed our world because she has been in this area for a long time and told me all about nutrients that are coming off the soil here and some other really helpful things. Tippy's recovered. Tippy has a head tilt because that infection made his head tilt, and that's not going to recover. Tippy's also going to go to the butcher, or we're going to butcher him eventually. So that genetic is not passing on, but he's totally recovered. Henry, the lead ram, I think I told you guys about him having something caught in his hoof the other day, and I sort of trimmed it. I didn't trim his feet well enough. He got something else caught between his toes or his cloves or whatever, and he was limping again. And so we got him on his back. I have a better set of trimmers. So if you have sheep, they make 2 kinds of trimmers. There's these like really heavy duty ones that aren't very sharp. Those suck. And then there's ones that are sharper, and they're just hand shears. And so I got the sharper ones, and he was limping. So we got him on his back, and we also had Tippy on his back. So while Tippy was on his back, we trimmed his hooves because why not? Because that was the last time Tippy had to go on his back. In fact, we need the collar off of Tippy, Tactical. We need to get collars so we can use them on the girls. So I trimmed Henry's feet some more, having watched more videos about how to trim them. I have trimmed goat feet. It's not that different, but it was a little bit more detailed. My goat hooves don't get as weird as the sheep hooves. And I think at this point, we're going to start doing it on a 2-month cycle, because then it'll keep up. And then we're also trying this other method of, will they maintain their own feet if they have a sandpaper run, basically to run up and down. So we're going to build one of those and see if that helps, because if we can get them to where we don't have to trim the hooves, then life is a little bit better. But trimmed his hooves, found a rock between his cloves, pulled that out, cleaned them all up, and he's still limping a little bit, but he's doing better. I have no idea like that. I'm a little concerned that Henry's feet are so sensitive. So I'm keeping an eye on it, because if he may be transitioning. We'll see. And after talking to the vet, so we've been closing the sheep in the barn at night in order to keep them safe from coyotes, because coyotes are hunting more at night. And we've known this is not ideal, but we don't want to just leave them out and have like come out one morning and the whole herd's gone, right? And as a result of that, I know that they are more likely to be exposed to parasite loads because they are in a barn where they are pooping. And if they eat any hay off the ground, then that's an issue. And eating hay off the ground for sheep causes multiple issues, where like at certain times of year, if it gets moldy, that can lead to sheep polio, for example, and nutrient problems. So you want to get the hay up off the ground for them. But there's hay on the ground because you're putting straw on the ground so that it absorbs. I'd actually like to get wood chips for this next year. So we need to make a solution for getting the wood chips here, since the electrical company is not putting out. So now that we want the sheep to rotate better, the vet came out and she's like, well, why don't you have an LGD? Well, the reason we don't have an LGD is I don't know where to get an LGD. A. B. I've had dog problems and I don't want my dogs killed by an LGD. So I talked to Nick Ferguson, because Nick Ferguson is very knowledgeable on how to train LGDs. And the veterinarian said, hey, we got somebody who's got 2 she needs to get rid of that she will just give you. They've got their vaccinations. They've been neutered, like all of it. She just needs them gone. Needs them working somewhere. And she just wants to give them to a farmer like you who needs protection so that they can help defend the ruminants from coyotes and stray dogs. I was like, okay, well, I need to think about this. I was already like, way too much information. Can't make a decision. So I had a good talk with Nick about training LGDs, about LGDs and domestic dogs and what to do about that so that they still defend your sheep against stray dogs, but hopefully don't kill your domestic dogs. By the way, guys, there's not a perfect solution to this. So just know that. And we decided we would get 1. And then after I talked to Nick, we decided we'd get 2. The LGDs move in this weekend. We are also separating the girls from the boys this weekend. So we have to figure out timing for that so that it all can happen. And then the way we're integrating them to begin with is, in fact, I'll go over this afternoon, and Tactical and I are going to figure out what we're building. We're going to build like a cattle panel or some sort of pen that the dogs won't get out of, where the sheep sleep. So that when they come in at night, we'll put the dogs in at night. Everybody sees everybody. The sheep sleep through the night and don't get eaten by the dogs. And hopefully everybody will get to know each other the next week. So, and then we can just let the LGDs, by the way, LGD stands for Livestock Guardian Dog. These are Anatolian Pyrenees mixes. Anatolian Shepherd, Pyrenees mix. They can all be together. What we want the dogs to do is sort of accept the sheep as their pack, and then they defend them if there's a problem. Nick said 2 is better than 1 if you can do it, but it's more of a training challenge because especially if they're litter mates, they may identify with each other better than the sheep. And if they're puppies, which they are, there could be some times where I have to train them that the sheep are important. And he told me how to do that. Like if they start chasing sheep, you hang a board off their collar and then they can't run, and that calms them down. These ones, though, have already been in the process of being trained by their mom around goats and sheep and ducks and livestock on somebody else's farm. So in theory, they have a foundation of knowing what they're supposed to do. We will see this weekend. We will let you know how that goes, but we do have those 2 coming in. And what that means is that the sheep will no longer long-term be closed in the barn at night. They will be out on their paddocks with temporary shelter. And in theory, if coyotes or wild dogs come from the livestock guardian dogs, that's the idea. And hopefully it's just enough that there are dogs there to keep them away. But if not, I want dead coyotes, not dead sheep. I want dead stray dogs, not dead sheep. That's the goal here. And then as far as rotating them through my property with my dogs, Nick's advice is don't let your dogs interact with the LGDs and then they won't kill them. Do not teach your LGDs not to kill dogs by teaching them not to kill your dogs. But he did say what he does is he takes his pet dog out on a leash around him and then puts him on the ground like he's alpha in front of the LGD and teaches his pet dogs to submit to the LGD. What the LGD does is realizes, okay, if the dog lays on its back and submits, if it's not an issue and they don't neutralize the threat. And that's only if the dog gets into the electrical fence. So at my property, the places where my dogs go, that the sheep will be, my dogs don't like touching or getting near an electric fence. So they're unlikely to go on the other side of the electric fence. B, they're only here for 5 to 7 days near the house eating the grass. And then hopefully they will move on. And then my dogs have the yard again. So during that 5 to 7 days, I have to be extra careful about where my dogs are going while the LGDs are here. So that's the deal. So that's what's up. That's the new animals we're getting. So I said no more than one kind of animal, but the LGDs are related to the sheep. I'm hoping it will make Tactical's life easier and my life easier because right now it's like put the sheep in, put the ducks in. let the sheep out, let the ducks out. It's extra steps every day. And if it's instead, he can concentrate on rotating from here to there and that's it. And, feeding the dogs when he goes over and checks the sheep a couple times a day. Perfect. Perfect. And of course, we're working on moving our dogs towards a raw diet if I would just get better at producing rabbits, which I'm not very good at. The other little livestock update's a cute one. So last week I told you, or a couple weeks ago, I told you that the Muscovies have one duck named Baby because it's the baby. We don't know if it's a boy or a girl yet. That's just because I don't know how to tell on baby Muscovies. Usually it's like with the khaki Campbells, I can tell within about a week who's male and who's female. And that's just because I know that breed. I don't know this breed that well. I know that we are about to go through a molt and I'm going to have to clip their wings again. But the baby found the pond. And this was super exciting for the baby. And so we have all sorts of, we didn't do video, which was stupid, but he was like swimming circles around his mom in the pond. And he had a really good time with that. So that was our little the cool thing about raising livestock on the homestead, as much as I've talked about like on Monday about loss and how decisions you make can result in animals dying. The cool thing about livestock is you get these really cute moments, like when baby, swam around his mom. And then like the weird psychopathic part of this is if baby is male, baby might get processed. So it just depends on how that is. Okay. Next segment is Grow. This is where we talk about what's like plant-wise coming off the gardens and such. We are finally getting peppers, according to Tactical. I have not seed set peppers, but he told me that his peppers that he's been neglecting all year because the sheep are taking 4 times the time as he thought. And so he's doing the thing where he's neglecting his plants. He's like, despite being neglected, I'm starting to get peppers. So I'm looking forward to cooking with these peppers. My peppers up in the upper garden, I'm getting a few hot peppers. Down here under Taj Mahal, where they usually do great, they have not done great. And I think it's because my favorite pepper growing pot, I have an eggplant in, and the eggplant's doing great in that pot. And I think it's a location thing. So the plots here just get beat by the sun. And peppers, as much as they're okay with the hot sun, they also prefer to have a little bit of relief at this time of year. Except for the weather gods have been in our favor and cooled off, and we've had some overcasts. So both like my tomatoes are doing great, and the peppers here are starting to think about producing peppers. But it's been I think what I'm going to have is like a September, October harvest, which is not ideal. I would have liked to have been getting jalapeno peppers for a while. So next year I'm going to be more purposeful about the pepper plants I want, because one really thriving jalapeno pepper plant gives me peppers for the year. And I'm going to like really baby it. I'm probably going to put it in the pot where the eggplant that's doing well is, because peppers just do well in that plant, in that pot, in that location. So that's been the thing. Glad to hear he's getting peppers. I'm hoping I get at least one of the Jack Spirko peppers I have been cultivating here for 3 years now. Because, they taste delicious. They're not as hot as other jalapenos, but they have that jalapeno flavor. And it's delicious. I do still have some seed, I think, somewhere. So worst case scenario, I'll do that rather than have to get a pepper from Jack again. Whew. Okay, it's a squash year. We need to have a talk about this. Here's what happens to squash on the Holler Homestead. I plant them every year. They start thinking about producing. And then either squash bugs or squash vine borers or both come and they wipe out my squash, except a couple of winter varieties like Cushaw and Tromboncino sometimes make it through. Every so often, I have a year like this year. This year, I'm getting squash. If anybody's keeping up with the YouTube channel, you saw the Cushaw I got that was 21.4 pounds. There's another one out there. I got giant squash. And I'm getting enough of the summer style that I like the zucchini, the yellow squash, and then Tromboncino when they're young and not super long. I'm getting enough of those that it's like keeping me in squash. I don't have to buy squash. In fact, I have some surplus squash. I don't have throw it in people's cars that are unlocked in Walmart level surplus squash, but I have some surplus squash. I have a zucchini that I need a zoodle maker, and Jenny doesn't live here anymore, so I can't borrow hers. But I'm going to make it into zoodles and freeze dry them because those are delicious instead of spaghetti if you want spaghetti and you're staying keto, which, as we mentioned, I'm being disciplined about. We have a challenge going out, by the way, on the keto thing, just to totally get off topic, that we're seeing how many pounds we can all lose, those of us who want to lose weight between now and Self-Reliance Festival. Toolman Tim and I are doing it. And then anybody who's coming to the festival, we're going to ask you to share how many pounds you lost in the 2 months between now and actually 6 weeks between now and Self-Reliance Festival. So I've lost 3 pounds already, just so you know. Toxin dump on the low back. Anyway, back to the squash. So it's the year of the squash. Last time we had a squash year like this, I also had a hard winter. Now, if you listen to the Farmer's Almanac and to the folks who are talking on the news about what the problem is, the next problem we need to worry about, we're going to have a hard winter. Every single year since I've lived here, because of the caterpillars, because of the shapes in the persimmons, because of the whatever, right? There's all these different tells. And they're like, oh, that means it's going to be a snowy winter. That means it's going to be a cold winter. That means it's going to be a hard winter. Winter is coming. And every summer about now, they say how hard the winter is going to be. And every year, the winter is going to be hard. And sometimes they're right. And every winter, it gets cold somewhere. And we're like, yeah, see, they were right. It got cold. Well, it's winter. It gets cold. But I will say last time, because I keep track of what's coming off the garden every year. And what I've noticed is some years, some things do better. No matter how good I am at raising peppers, tomatoes, eggplants, whatever my thing is, some years, some things do better. And some years, some things are more challenging. And this year I'm getting tomatoes and I'm getting squash. And last time that happened, we indeed had a very cold winter. It was not a very snowy winter. There was some ice. What we had was like plunging below 0 Fahrenheit and staying there and then not coming above freezing for like a week, which in Tennessee is hard on the pipes. So I'm preparing for that. I'm always preparing for a hard winter. Like Tactical's used to hearing this from me now. Like, do we have enough firewood? Because I don't want to run out of firewood if it's one of those cold winters, and I have enough firewood this year. I got on it sooner. So I'm just sharing that little observation in case you live in Tennessee and you haven't thought about winter is coming, because winter is coming. And maybe a mild winter. Like just because I have a good squash year doesn't mean that it's going to be a bad winter. But I just know last time it was. And I've only had this happen one other time in 15 years. So I don't know. I don't have a pattern here. I just know that that's what happened. So, and I like to be ready for cold winters, because what I don't like is having to use electric wall heaters when I'm out of firewood, which costs a lot of money and is not as warm as firewood. I got 2 jars of green beans off of the green bean row, which was super exciting. It was like a mess of green beans, and it was more than what I could eat. So I've started so usually when I can like 12 to 24 jars of green beans all at once, multiple bushels, bang it out like a beast. I haven't had that opportunity this year for anything. I got to do one half of 1 bushel, which was 12 jars, one time. That was a big moment for me. But the beans haven't been coming, even though I now have 3 rows of beans up there. And it's just been like with that early heat wave we had, that was really hard on the plants. And it was really hard in particular on the green beans. And I really like to eat green beans. I did not can corn this year because of my schedule. And that was the one thing I could have gotten in abundance had I just not been going out of town. And I know how fast corn goes bad. So I couldn't say like, I'll take it and then 4 days later can it, because you don't do that, right? You take it and you can it the same day if you can, and if not the next day. So I am now, when I have any surplus, rather than feeding it to the pigs, which like that much surplus of green beans, I totally would have fed to the pigs and been happy that it was pork later. I'm canning it so we have some winter storage. So I did that and like 4 jars of tomatoes. because that's the surplus we have. And I haven't done enough salsa yet. This is why I want jalapeno peppers. So hopefully I have about 2 batches of salsa worth of tomatoes right now that need to be canned. And they can wait another day, which is good because tomorrow I go to the farmer's market. And if they have jalapenos, I'm buying them and I'm making salsa. Because I've already put up stewed tomatoes. I've already got tomato sauce. I already have tomatoes in the freezer that can be anything. I want salsa. I have like 7 jars of salsa, and we usually go through 24 jars of salsa. So hopefully we'll get the salsa thing going. And if not, we're going to run out of salsa this year, and that's going to suck. But life will go on, as we like to say, if you've listened to that episode. Okay, what else is coming off the garden? We're seeding the carrots and the beets this week. We've had a weather pattern in August that is just cooler and regular rain, which is great for germinating seeds. He has a kind of a shady spot that becomes unshady in the winter. So we're going to put seeds. We're going to seed carrots and beets down there and see how they do, and do some row cover over the winter to see if we can get them. Last time I planted it, this time I didn't get carrots or beets until really early spring, but it worked. So why not try it again? I'm getting, as I said earlier, round 2 of some strawberries. It's not in abundance, but it's a few berries here and there. And then I just had a big call with Nick Ferguson today. We're going to be planting some things. So originally I was doing a food forest installation. We were going to do the earthworks and maybe wait a little bit for bare roots. But I have an opportunity to get some potted things to plant. So for the food forest, we're talking about how to plan your food forest, how to do it within the context of your overall plan for your property, how to decide what to plant where, and then we're going to plant it. There's some earthworks involved with this. I have a backhoe scheduled. There's not a lot of earthworks. You know why? Because I'm not putting in a swale. Food forest and swale are not the same thing. Not every property needs a swale. Not every food forest needs a swale. So we're installing it specific to my property. We're going to talk about why. That's October, I think, 28th and 29th. It's Friday, Saturday. And it's going to be done like my spring workshop, only with a lower head count, so that we can more easily accommodate everything. And it will be here at the Holler Homestead, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. All the hijinks. It's also like right by my birthday, and it's a big number for me this year. It's a benchmark number for me this year. And we're going to do it and do some of the work. There's not a lot of planting to do because the area I'm putting my food forest in it's like I have a 3.2 acre property. It's not like I want to do 3.2 acres of food forest and I have to design in, sheep having access to graze for maintenance and those sorts of things. But I just had the talk about what we're going to plant where. And it's kind of fun because I've got plants here already that are propagated, and I'm propagating that can go in. And then we're bringing in some plants from outside and really dialing in what comes off the property from a perennial standpoint so that I can have this in the long term while balancing that with fodder needs for livestock, because especially having like transitioned to more of a meat-based diet, I need to keep the meat alive, right? I don't need a lot of fruit for me. I need to keep the meat alive. So we're going to be getting those plants in. Of course, at the class, we'll explain why we've chosen each variety of plant. I'll show you some ones I've propagated here that we're putting in. Plant propagation is super easy for certain varieties. Like figs are great and they're easy, right? No, I have failed at figs for like 3 years. Other people do well with them. I don't do well with figs yet. We kind of joked today. It's like you got to kill 1 million plants to figure out how to raise it, right? If you're going to be a gardener, you have to resign yourself to you're really a plant murderer until you figure out what you're doing. But I do have some wine berries and some gooseberries and some poplar trees and some mulberry trees and strawberries that take over the world. Like Ryan Steva gave me this variety that's like, woo, it's really viney and explosive, which is pretty cool, especially if you want that as your ground cover. We're going to be doing all that October 27th and 28th. I'm kind of going into more detail here because tickets go on sale Saturday morning at 9 a.m. Members, you will have an email this evening with a pre-sale. So my members of the Living Free in Tennessee podcast, of course, get first crack at those tickets. And it's going to be a $400 workshop. except for if you pay with cryptocurrency, then it's $360. So you'll see how to do that when you sign up. The reason I'm doing that is I looked at the bank fees of my spring workshop, and that's why I didn't do too well. I did not break even. I close to broke even at the spring workshop, and bank fees made the difference. So you know how you avoid bank fees? Use an alternative banking method, which that is. And if you've never done anything with cryptocurrency before and you sign up for this, and you say, I've never done it, this is my first time, I'm going to talk you through how to do that so that you learn a new skill. And I thought offering a discount would be a good incentive for people to kind of learn how this whole cryptocurrency Bitcoin thing works. Anyway, that's the deal with the grow section. Next, we're going to talk about Holler Neighbors and community. We've got somebody coming for Homestead boot camp next week for 3 days. They're coming here. We're going to be talking about how to raise poultry, how to prepare garden beds. In fact, we have one we need to prepare that's a really hard one to prepare. So that's going to be super fun to show. We're going to talk about fencing the sheep, rotating the sheep, caring for the sheep. She will be here for LGD integration and anything else she wants to cover. I was like, we can talk about preserving and some of those other things. She's going to stay at base camp, do 3 days here. It's our first experiment with this because a lot of people are asking, like, how do I bone up on these skills really quickly? And she was the first one to suggest, hey, what if I just came out here and just sort of did a couple weeks of internship so I could learn? And I was like, well, what do you want to learn? And she gave me a list. I'm like, we can do that in 3 days. And whatever we don't do in 3 days, you know, we can make it up later. That keeps you from leaving your property for too long. That keeps us sort of confined with having an extra person here, which takes a little more time and coordination when you're training people or showing people things versus just doing the things. And, you know, it's been a kind of crazy train week. So I'm interested to report how that goes. I'm going to double check she's still coming today because we haven't talked to each other in like a week and a half. And I'm sure she's still coming, but just double check and make sure she doesn't have like COVID or something and we need to delay again. There's going to be a shower building GSD weekend at the SOE Tactical Equipment Compound. We're keeping that limited to the right number of people that can get these 2 showers built. But we want to have outdoor showers this time for Self-Reliance Festival, just for the campers, because it's, you know, nice to be able to wash off and de-stinkify, especially if you're somewhere for 3 days or 2 days, and especially if it gets hot, which it did in June. So that's happening. And then the Airbnb had our first guest, and that went really well. She was somebody who listens to the podcast. She gave me a list of like 2 or 3 things she would have liked to have had there. So we have added those. And it is available for temporary rent through the end of August. And then somebody from the community is moving in while they transition from one home to another. I don't know how long they're staying. So that's going to be fun, though, to get to know somebody that way. Next segment is infrastructure. This is where we talk about what we're building on the homestead and how we're building it. This is cool. So part of why the sheep take 4 times as much time is Tactical's running around moving fence all the time. And that's what it means when you rotate ruminants, right? You either have the paddocks all made and you just open door, right? Like Joel Salatin's pigs have kind of where they go when you go check it out. And it's not a bunch of temporary step-in posts, right? It's like, this is some hard wire in the woods that they get zapped with if they go from one paddock to another. It was really helpful for me to see that because it like finally clicked in my head, this is how we can rotate pigs without it being a huge pain in the butt. It's a huge pain in the butt with sheep right now. And you may think I regret getting sheep. I don't at all. It is this way anytime you do a new livestock variety. And the fact that ruminants haven't been rotating here on the regular means that we're not prepared just from a like how things are standpoint to be able to easily rotate them. So what Tactical realized when he spent like the first few weeks rotating the sheep through my place is that it would be way better if he didn't have to drive a ground rod and move a charger every couple of days when he's like gotten too far from the charger. And, you know, how many step-in posts do you really want to keep track of? He's like, if I don't get stuff like nailed over at that other place, I'm going to have to buy even more step-in posts to get from the barn all the way up the hill where the sheep are. Wherein if we get the LGDs out there and they're not coming back to the barn, I don't have to keep that all wired in, and that's better. So this enters the upgrade that happened this week. He got a more powerful charger than we have in the goat pasture, and he has put that in. He's finishing putting, instead of the braided wire for the top of the, because the goats have fencing and then a little space and then a wire, so that if they try to jump over, it hits them in the nose and then they don't jump over. This is why they haven't been on my roof in a while. He's putting solid wire there instead, and then he can take a jumper wire off of that and from that one pasture reach anywhere on my property. And that means one charger, the ground post is in. He may end up having to put extra ground posts around, but he's making it so that the temporary fencing is a little bit more permanent and a little easier to deal with, so he's not running extension cords everywhere and moving fence chargers. And I'm pretty excited to see this one in action because we're about to have the girls back here, and then he's going to show me how that works. And that was a really good innovation. And I know he had lots of time to think about it as he was moving stupid fence chargers around. So that's it for infrastructure. Next week is, and I don't have a lot to report here other than back to the thing about the step-in posts and the paddocks and the wire. Having enough budget or money available to be able to have 3 or 4 paddocks made in advance makes managing rotating ruminants a lot easier. So if you're planning to do ruminants and you're going to have enough step-in posts and wire for 2 paddocks, do the calculation, figure out what it takes to have 4. Because that little extra money investment in infrastructure may make your life so much easier that you have more time to make money elsewhere. If you're only 1 paddock ahead every time, you're always making the next paddock. So just think about that. I have a friend who was thinking about getting ruminants at his place. And he was like, so what I need to do is not have to do this more than once a week so I can get enough paddocks made. So I'll make 1 or 2 paddocks. And I'm like, okay, so my experience with sheep has been they eat through the paddocks way faster. Way faster than you think they're going to. That's good. Actually, that's good for them because they're getting enough to eat. That's good for you because you're clearing stuff. But it's way faster. And so if you want to do a weekly paddock making thing, then think about the fact that you want to be a few paddocks ahead and make sure you have enough infrastructure for that. Billy Bond is in the house. Hey, Billy. That's it for today's Homestead update. For those of you on the live, you know that we will be staying after and doing a Q&A. I have a couple questions queued up. If you haven't gotten your questions queued up yet, you can ask us anything. I think we're going to do a sheep chat at some point. Ask us anything. Just put it the first couple of letters in all caps, and we will take that. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this Homestead update. I'm tired. I don't know if you can see on my face, but I'm super tired. I had the messy bun thing going on this morning, and I almost just left it in for this live stream. I was like, this is what I look like after a morning like this, because it was like crazy train morning where, like, in the midst of stuff going on here, deliveries came. We got 4 picnic tables for the event. I got rid of the old picnic tables and got ones that fold flat for storage. Those arrived today, a week early. Almost makes up for all the coffee shipping chaos I had a week and a half ago where I shipped orders out and they've just disappeared. And at some point, I don't know, y'all who got a replacement order might end up with 2 orders. Who knows? Anyway, this is what life is like on the homestead. It's funny because a couple times of year, I end up feeling pretty bedraggled. And this is one of them. The reason I feel bedraggled is there's a lot of stuff coming off the garden, despite the fact I'm saying I can only, can these beans or can those tomatoes a little bit at a time. I'm getting a lot of other stuff off. So I'm getting herbs off the garden that need to be processed. I am getting weeds that need to be pulled. I'm getting a lot of squash I want to deal with, and I don't preserve squash. I store it in the root cellar, or I use it, or I might, like on the summer squash, might make zoodles and freeze dry it. Then there's like bone broth to be made and dealt with. I actually have bone broth I need to can still this month. There's cheese to be made from the milk because milk stops in the fall, late fall. And I want to have my cheese done before that happens, or else I'm going to have to buy cheese at the store or not have cheese. So all of that's happening. It's time to get the garlic ready to be planted in October. I've pulled the garlic out. I have seasoned it. I have it in, I have the stems cut off and I have it stored. It's now time for me to say, okay, you get planted again and you get eaten. And I try to choose the best garlic. So at this time of year, just like mid-spring, I start just going, oh, I can't get it all done. We're right back there again because probably I'm going to the farmer's market this weekend, and this is going to be the week the beans come because I am going out of town for a week for vacation late next week. And that means that all the things will happen at once here before I do that. That's just life on a homestead. Hope you enjoyed today's show. If you did and want to support the work I do here, you can support me in two ways. One, get your coffee at hollerroast.com. Yummy coffee. To consider becoming a member over at livingfreeintennessee.com. Just go over there, click on membership to find out more. With that, guys, go out, make it a great week. And Tactical is in the house, but Tactical is muted because he knows he makes noise because he has not figured out a headset set up for his phone yet.
Tactical wasn't paying attention, so Tactical is just now making a cup of coffee so I can sit down.
He's literally in my house. You might hear an echo because my door is not closed. I'm going to go close my door. Okay, guys. So this is the Q&A session. I'm going to mute Tactical while I talk about what we're doing here. This is the Q&A session. Hey, Tactical, can you close my door? This Q&A session is you can ask us anything. Now I think we need to do a sheep specific live stream for y'all who are thinking about raising sheep, because we're at that point of raising sheep where we kind of have a system and we've made a lot of mistakes and we've learned a lot of things and we've done a lot of things right. And I think that's a really good time for people to have, input or ask questions, especially if you're thinking of raising sheep or you're dreaming of raising sheep. So we'll get that scheduled this week. But for now, let's go into the questions. The first one is, I'm curious to hear how the Sandpaper Hoof filer works. And this is really cool. This is something we heard about for goats. Tactical, do you want to explain it? Or do you want to make your coffee?
The vet that we had out the other day was saying that she knows a guy who has, I think it was goats, and he basically built something that looks like an A-frame roof, but it's on the ground, and he used just the tar shingles, like roofing shingles, and the goats, of course, want to get on top of it. And while they're on top of it, it basically just files their hooves down.
Yeah, so she said that she saw somebody have one of these in place, and she was really surprised with how good the feet of the goat looked, the goat herd looked. And she was like, how do you keep up on this? And he showed her that roof thing with asphalt shingle things on them. And she was like, it just did great. She's like, I don't know if it'll work for sheep because I don't know if the sheep will get up on it, but we're going to try it and we'll see if it works. I mean, we can use asphalt shingles. We could actually get like grip tape like you put on a skateboard, would do the same sort of thing. Sheep do like to climb things. They're not like as playful as goats that I've seen on stuff like that. But, if it works, that would make my life a lot easier, because holding these guys on their backs and clipping their feet, because like wool sheep, you tilt them back in a chair and you do their hooves. I don't know that that's going to work. Like these hair sheep wiggle a lot and they don't want you touching their feet, but we need to touch their feet. So we'll see how that goes. I'm kind of excited to give that an experiment, and it probably can result in a lot of stories of me saying that didn't work at all. Or maybe it will work. That can help people figure out how they want to maintain sheep feet, And then I thought Tactical was in my house, by the way, guys, because I saw his chimney and the color of the wall behind him. And I realized that I painted his wall the same color as my walls like years ago because he's in the cabin. And it was his house, not my house. That's why there was no echo. I was like, Wow, it's really not echoing and I'm not hearing you. Yeah, that's why. So, next question. Using a veggie peeler on squash to make noodles. Yeah, I could use a veggie. So I talked earlier about I had this big zucchini that got away from me, and I want to make zoodles and freeze dry them, but I don't have the spiralizer that Jenny lent me last time, so I need to actually probably think about if I want to get yet another kitchen gadget or if I just want to slice up the zucchini and have zucchini flour. Because the other thing is when you freeze dry zucchini, they turn to flour pretty easily if you just slice them up. Actually, the zoodles do too if you abuse them in storage. And that makes really good stew thickener instead of flour if you want a thicker stew. So that's something I have used for thickening. And I was like, when I saw that I had waited too long to harvest this one zucchini, I was like, a piece of me was sad because I like eating them in sautés, but the other piece of me was like, yes, zoodles for the winter. So it wasn't the end of the world. And hey, I see 25 of you guys on this live feed right now, and I have 0 questions. And this part of the live feed is where you ask us questions or you make comments and then we answer you. That's how we guide the content. So throw your questions in, man. I will say this. So we have a lot of events coming up, and I have my food forest install event in October, but Billy from Permapasture Farms, this dude right here, he did the swale install over at John Willis's. And it was a great class. Everybody who went loved it. There are some of you on this live feed right now who probably were at that class. And what's happening next is he's going to teach how to create plant guilds and plant trees in the swales. And that's happening Friday before Self-Reliance Festival. The class starts at 10. It's $123. It includes a delicious lunch that I'll be serving. And we only have 50 tickets available. So it's a smaller class because we're also setting up Self-Reliance class festival that day. So if you want to come out to SOE, have some one-on-one time with people like Billy, like me, like John, definitely do that out. Like go over to selfreliancefestival.com and click on workshops, and it's right there. The tickets went on sale yesterday. So grab your ticket, and then if you want to pair it with Self-Reliance Festival, you can. Camping, you can come in Thursday before the class if you are signed up for that class. And yeah, get your tickets now while you can. I've got a question about that. What's the weather like in Camden in October? Wondering how to pack for SRF. Okay, so the transition time between summer and fall in Tennessee happens right around the beginning of October. So it could be low 80s during the day and 60s at night, or it could be 60s, 70s during the day and down into the 40s at night. That's your range right now. I mean, right now being the transition between September and October. It's actually kind of ideal camping time and hiking time right about then through the month of October. I've never gone below freezing the first weekend of October, but I have gone down into the below freezing the second weekend of October, and it's Tennessee, so anything goes. It could rain, it could be sunny, so be prepared for that. As we get closer, we'll have a much better idea of what it's going to be for Self-Reliance Festival, but it is one of the, it's one of the times of year where you're most likely to have the kind of weather we want to have for this event. And I think I might start doing a Self-Reliance Festival live update every week about what's going on with the festival, what's going on with the workshops, and answering questions like this, because a lot of people have questions. And I thought, we can get those out, put them on the website, and people can kind of see what's happening with this event. And I can do a little blog post about it. So if anybody's interested in that, let me know, because it's a lot of work to do that. But I think it's probably worth it just as this event keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So, yep, you want one of those tickets? Get it while you can. Okay. Claiming Liberty says, are the new LGDs boys? Just thinking there might be fewer problems with pets if they are. So yes, the reason we're getting 2 and the reason I'm willing to get 2 is both of them are boys. Both are neutered. Both have their shots. And I think the male LGDs with all the female dogs we have here, like that cross pollination's unlikely to be as weirdly difficult. And that is sort of the deal, right? Get the males. And then I've heard male LGDs are a little bit easier to train than females. These ones are 8 months old. They've already been trained. The beginning part of training from, you know, the farm where they are now. The lady who has these dogs, she's like, my mission in life is to keep as many ruminants alive as possible from wandering packs of dogs. So I just lucked into this. If we hadn't had the vet out and paid basically $100 to save this lamb, I wouldn't have had this connection for the LGDs. I wouldn't know what nutrients are in my soil, that there is, in fact, selenium in my soil, and that there's definitely sulfur in the soil. The funny thing is, if we look at the way the salt licks, because we have a salt lick that has what was that thing I just said? Sulfur in it. And we have one that has selenium in it. And so you can kind of see how much the sheep are hitting one versus the other. They haven't touched the sulfur one since they got here. It just like moves with them and is a heavy thing that moves with them. And the selenium one they do, and she said, you know, you have mid-range selenium in your soil. You have sulfur all over this area. And she told me why. And I was like, well, that totally jibes with what the sheep are getting into. So that's kind of a thing. Okay, I'm going to go on to the next. Tactical, by the way, I muted you. You're going to have to unmute yourself when you want to talk. Do you know how to do that on your phone?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're just muting you when you're not talking. I would like to talk to you about getting a headset for next week. Okay, next question is, do you de-seed the zucchini when slicing it to freeze dry for zucchini flour? I'm going to mute you. This one's for me. I do. If I spiralize it, the seeds just aren't a problem, I guess. I don't know why. But yeah, if it has big seeds in it, I'll take those out because they take longer to freeze dry, and B, it's it could be made in the flour, but it's going to take an extra maybe half day to freeze dry the zucchini because the seeds are there. So the seeds are more dense and they take longer to dry. And so if I have a big zucchini I'm freeze drying, I cut it in half long ways. I kind of scoop out that seed layer and then I slice it to put on the tray for the freeze dryer and run it that way. And then I've also taken the skin off, by the way, for this. So that becomes zucchini flour. And I was super excited when I learned I could make that myself, because the sort of the keto flours that we get are usually almond flour, which Nighthawk's allergic to, or, you know, other things, the sorghum flour, zucchini flour is a really good one for the purposes that I use it for. Okay, Permapasture's Farm. Billy wants to know, how's it working out with the sheep mineral? The sheep mineral is working great, Billy. I'm still mixing it. So Billy gave me a different sheep mineral from a veterinarian in Georgia. And I have seen increased vibrance of the sheep. We had a little trouble figuring out our system to get it to the sheep because it's a powder. And now that that's figured out, I actually need to mix more because they were on a different mineral. I mixed it 1-to-1. We are now down to 2-to-1 is happening. And we're just getting it so they're 100% there. I actually need to drive down there and get more. That's how it's working. Like, really like that sheep mineral. The controversy with this, and this is counter to what the veterinarian told me, is it has some copper in it, and people tell you not to put copper in your sheep mineral. And this particular veterinarian does. And so far, we haven't had any issues with it. Next question is, would love to go to SRF, but too far to drive each day. Is there a cost to camp out? No. Camping's included. It's tent camping on site. If you come with an RV, Special Operations Equipment's old location has big parking lot where campers can go. And there's another place where campers could go. There are also paid campsites within 4 miles of there that have like hookups and stuff that are not in, and showers. So yeah, the camping is included, but it's rustic camping, right? It's got porta potties and there's land. And we have water and coolers that you can get access to, and water from the hose. That's what's there. And the water from the hose isn't always accessible at night. So, it's better to just get your water from the coolers that we have out during the festival. And we didn't charge extra for it because that's sort of the that's one of the things you can sacrifice on if you're like figuring out how am I going to fit this into my budget. Anyway, is it tent camping or car camping? It's tent camping. Parking is off site. It's a 3-minute walk from parking to the compound, and parking is $5 for the weekend. I don't know if that'll go up next year or not. That is because we pay the gas station and the other property owner where we park, and we pay the guys who are showing you how and where to park. And the reason we can't do parking on the compound is we are using it. We have some parking there for event staff, but we're using most of the ground for the actual event. And the walk isn't that bad, but the parking is sort of like the way you come into special operations equipment is there's a sort of this long driveway. At that entrance right next door to it is a gas station. He lets us use his parking. He also makes delicious barbecue sandwiches. So we have food for sale from food vendors at Self-Reliance Festival, and right at the entry is a guy making barbecue that's delicious. So you can buy from him too. That helps us keep the relationship going for having parking that close to Self-Reliance Festival, because it's really nice that we can just walk. We don't have to have like a shuttle bus for offsite people and that sort of thing. Guys, keep the questions coming. We'll keep answering them. Random, most appealing recipes involving freeze-dried ground beef, shredded cheddar. Our first drying efforts haven't found the sweet spot for use. You're going to hate my answer, because the way I use ground beef that's been freeze-dried personally is by throwing it in the bag, throwing a backpack on my back, going backpacking, taking the ground beef, which has no seasoning, putting the ground beef in a little pot, boiling water, putting a bouillon cube in there, pouring the hot water on it, and throwing dehydrated potatoes in there. I know it's not keto. It's delicious, though, especially after a long day of hiking. The person I know who has a recipe is not on this live stream. I haven't seen him. That he really likes. He makes chili out of it and can't tell the difference. So I guess my question is, what are you using the ground beef for that's not turning out very well? Because I would think if you rehydrate it properly and put taco seasonings in and make tacos, that would be something you could do, or make like chili with peppers and all that other stuff. He makes chili, like he prefers to make chili from the freeze-dried beef versus from fresh now after doing that. So I would say if you're having issues on sweet spot for use, go online and look at how people are rehydrating ground beef. Are they using warm water? Are they using cold water? What's the ratio? Are they using tomato or broth or something else? How are they seasoning it? How long do they let it sit to soak it up? Because my question is it a consistency thing in your mouth? Is it a flavor thing that's going to be spicing? Or is it something else? Is it not rehydrating all the way and you have like that little weird dry center? That might be a time or a temperature issue. Okay, when is the shower building event and how can I join? This one is an answer from Tactical.
We are looking at, I think it's the first or second Saturday in September. Have not determined that yet. I still need to sit down with Nicole probably later today to finalize the design so that I can get the materials list. So, but we're looking at the first or second Saturday, and I have not had the conversation with her or Amanda to figure out whether or not we're doing like camping one of the nights or both nights or what. So that's another conversation that we still have to have.
Yeah, so I suspect it's more likely to be the second weekend, Tactical.
I'm leaning towards that too, seeing as how I don't have a materials list yet.
Yeah, and that's the same weekend that I'm doing my fermentation webinar on Saturday, so I won't have you to help me if you're there doing that, but that's okay.
That's
If
a
we
tough
can do it,
question.
if we can do it the first weekend, then it gives us the second weekend if we don't get it all done that first weekend. But it'd be better to get it done. We need people who can run saws, drills, nail guns, caulk guns. Like if you're comfortable with
Shovel.
what?
And a shovel.
So if you're comfortable with that, that's the kind of thing that's going to be needed. And we need to figure out food server, because I usually do the food. I won't be there for either of those weekends. So just, if you're like, hey, I can do food for that, then, let me know. And I think we probably want to keep the head count to 10 to 12 people, so it's not a big overwhelming thing. I'm going to double check all this with the Willises before we throw that out there and figure out who's coming. So BYOT, bring your own tools, except for we probably have access to shovels there. So Juniper Joseph says, I want to attend SRF. I have a 1-year-old. Do I need to get a second ticket for her? And is the event kid friendly? This is a hard one for me to answer. The reason I haven't, you're probably the person who emailed me that question too. It's not a kid-friendly property. It's a homestead. So there's there are livestock guardian dogs and defense dogs and things that can cut you and fall on you. And if kids just like run around and haven't been brought up to understand how to behave in a situation like this, it's maybe not a good fit. There are some people who bring children there who have never asked me. They pay for the tickets. I think a 1-year-old is probably going to get away with not paying for a ticket. I should probably set an age, but the reason I haven't put an age out there is because the event has people using the F-bomb left and right. There are people who will drink alcohol there. There are people talking about scary things with, first aid and animal care and all of those things. So as a parent, you need to decide, do I want to put my kid in that environment? Some parents there do. They bring their kids. Their kids are more helpful than most of the adults to me because they're like, hey, Nicole, can I help you with something on this event? Because they're kind of bored and they want to do something. We had kids there playing last time, like just playing and having a good time in a way that was non-destructive. So John Willis always says, children who don't act like children are welcome. So just keep that in mind. And adults who act like children will be evicted. So it's, it's kind of a joking answer, but I think you know where we're coming from on that, where is it kid friendly? It depends how the kid is. It's an outdoor event without a playground and with rustic environments. And some kids do great in that environment. Like Patrick Rohrman's kids would do fine there. But there are also going to be adults around who are having very adult conversations, and they're going to use adult language. And so do with that what you will. I will answer your email too and say that we won't charge for your 1-year-old. And I will tell my event staff they don't need to charge for the 1-year-old, but we do charge for children. And the child rate is the same as the adult rate. There is no child break for this event. So just know that before you get there. Okay. Sounds like a great deal. So park and backpack gear, the setup, fun. Yeah. I think we did let people drop off nearer to the campsite than the parking place. It's not that big of that long of a walk, but I know when your hands are all full of stuff, that can be an issue. Guys, any other questions for us for the live stream? We're kind of winding up. If not, Tactical, anything you want to tell us about the homestead this week?
I don't know, but since I'm sitting right here, I'll show y'all this real quick. Like, video only does so much. One of the reasons you might want to come to some of these events is because you can actually see some of this stuff in person. What she was talking about, the fencing and running the hot wire across the top, this is what it looks like. And I'm doing this very differently than anybody else you will find, because they use a ratchet, not a spring.
I don't need this to be uber tight. I need it to not break if a tree falls on it. And all I need it to do is carry electricity. That's not dependent upon how many tensils you've stretched it to. So, that's one reason you can come to an event like this, is just to be able to talk to the people and to be able to actually see that type of thing. And then on that note, if you are going to one of those types of events, like I had a video pop up in my YouTube feed. It was before the last Self-Reliance Festival, and it was when Willis had first bought his piece of property. So it was like 6 years ago. And I mean, the place was still just complete gravel. And so I clicked through that video and watched a couple of minutes here and there just to remember what it looked like before. And then you get to go see what it looks like now.
I'm unmuting. Okay. Well, I don't see any other questions coming through. It looks like most of your questions were about Self-Reliance Festival and not about the Homestead, which is cool. We've been having, it's been a weird year here, like more weird than usual. Like every year is weird on the Homestead, but this year has been really strange with how the weather's been and the growing, and my health has been like really shitty this last 2 months. So I am taking control of that situation because it's my responsibility to be healthy. And I'm lucky to have the Holler Neighbors around me who've been helping me like ease up a little bit on some stuff. So thanks, Tactical and Nighthawk and Jenny, when you were here, that's made my life better. But we're getting ready for a really fun fall, and I'm looking forward to Self-Reliance Festival. I'm going to sing. I haven't sung my songs in a long time, and I was like stoked to hear that the people I played with last time I was there when we introduced Jack are coming again, because it's very easy for me to play with them because they're very good. And that means that I can say, like, learn these songs, I'll pay you some money, let's do a set. And then I think they're doing their own set, and Testamona's doing a set as well on Saturday night. So there'll be live music under the tent. And I think that's a really fun development, because it's like Self-Reliance Festival is it's like a prepper jam session and a homesteader jam session. We've got people showing you how to do anything from the ancient art of, spinning to canning to blacksmithing to distilling fuel to milling wood. We've processed animals. You've also got great presentations from people like Xavier Hawk. Dr. Ken Berry is going to do something a little different this time. I haven't released what he's going to do yet because we haven't worked out the specifics, but there's going to be a smaller, an ability for a subset of y'all to have a more intensive experience with him, and that's going to be cool. We got Jack Spirko back to talk about aquaculture, which is a very powerful way to grow food and to make your life beautiful around you. So we've got a couple of panels. I think we're going to do an Unloose the Goose reunion panel because there are so many geese who are going to be there. John Bush is going to be there again. Neethy's going to be there. I'm going to be there. Jack's going to be there. And Xavier Hawk's going to be there. So that's enough to have the reunion panel.
Is Jack's friend presenting?
Jack's friend is not presenting. That doesn't mean that Jack's friend won't present, but he's not presenting. I might talk him into a panel.
If you have not met Jack's friend, and I'm not going to say who it is, but it would be worth showing up to Self-Reliance Festival just to stand there and be a creeper and eavesdrop on all of his conversations. It is worth listening to this person talk. Yeah, he's I'm supposed to be doing a small business panel, like content business panel, and I may throw him on that if he's willing to, but it just depends on like he's going there to enjoy the event, not necessarily to be a presenter. So Josie, yes, you can send me homegrown dry chilies. I would even be up for a trade or a barter. I could send you coffee if you're in the US, and you could send me chilies. It would be awesome. Anyway, so yeah, we're getting ready for the fall events, and then it's Christmas season. During Christmas, what happens here is coffee crazy happens. People start ordering more Holler Roast to give as gifts. So like it's already started, it's bumped up, and I think part of that is that
Billy from Permaposter's Farm, who is doing the planting class, the guilds class before Self-Reliance Festival. He has started promoting the coffee as an affiliate, which has been a really fun partnership for me. Usually what I do is I brand the coffee for people, but he was like, heck, I'll just send them there and, we'll do it that way. And so that's definitely bumped up the coffee production. And then we go into Christmas and it gets really busy here, but we also have like all getting ready for winter and doing all the things where we process the food. And then in between that, I travel. And in the fall, what happens is everybody asks me to speak at events. And so I'm speaking at like 5 events this fall. I think I'm full at this point. I sing in a choir. Christmas is coming. We got to sing about Christmas, like choir fundraiser in October. Yeah, that's what happens. So I have a tendency, if I'm going to take a day off during the week, it's during the week and not on the weekend, because all the stuff happens on the thing. Yeah, Josie, telegram me for the address. We'll switch things out, and that would be great, because I'm not getting as much peppers this year. So having a trade like that, guys, is awesome. And this is how the network should be, right? Josie says, "Would you like some dried chilies that I grew?" And I'm like, heck yeah, I would, because mine sucked this year, right? And then I have something maybe Josie wants, and I send, coffee. So that's how we develop power together. That little trade. I traded coffee for bone sauce first with Billy, right? It was worth it. It would have been worth the money too, and so either way, but when we start doing this, like that little trade right there is awesome. And the more you can do that with each other, guys, this is why you should be on our social networks. The Living Free in Tennessee Telegram group, I'm pointing at my other monitor, the MeWe group, and there is now a Self-Reliance Festival group for people who have been to Self-Reliance Festival or are going this year, so that we can connect better, because we are at the point. So the way this event has gone is it started small, and it was like whatever we could do, we did, and it got bigger. It got really big. It's getting even bigger now. We're adding a creative layer, because creativity and self-reliance is also important. Like we have so many musicians and poets and writers and artists in the group we don't even know, right? So that's really important. But connecting, we're at the phase where, okay, we've got a thing. There have been some good relationships that came out. It's time to be purposeful about connecting and about trading with each other. So that's, I'm excited. So Carrie Brown and Dawn, who I bought the sheep from, they're working together to be purposeful about facilitating connections, so that y'all who are from Arkansas or from Kansas or from Washington State, y'all find each other and know I've got somebody else who has a shared priority of empowering ourselves to take care of ourselves and take care of each other. And I'm going to know who this person is. I'm going to have at least one other person in my state or in my town or in my city or in my neighborhood who I can count on to trade chilies for coffee. That's a big deal. That's a big deal when it's hard to get chilies or hard to get coffee, right? It's a big deal. It's a little thing, but little things are big deals. And that's what's important to know. The smallest things are the most important things. It's also true on the homestead. I talked Monday about how you make decisions, and that decision can result in dead livestock. And it's usually a stupid little decision you made, like going to CrossFit and not tethering that dog that was at my house that time, right? Next question. Will you have holiday packaging again? Of course I will. I already have holiday packaging ready to go. I should double check this is working. I think you can add gift wrapping to anything at this point on my thing. And then of course I have the holiday sampler packs with the insert. We're just getting inserts printed now because in the coffee world, guys, like it's Christmas right now. Christmas is a summertime activity for us. So we have everything on hand to get ready for when the orders come in. Cause I end up having all of the orders, like the bulk of the orders happen right at Thanksgiving week through December 20th. But before then, the people who are thinking in advance, they start ordering, like, now they have stuff on hand. They really, like, there's a bump up in October, and then there's the November is like to the moon, and then December 20th happens, and then I'll have like, ooh, and then it's the new year. And there'll be like 1 or 2 orders in there. There are people who subscribe who get their stuff late in the month, and that I take the time off between right before Christmas and New Year's to think about what I'm doing for the year and all of that. Last year, I didn't take it off from roasting. This year, I'm going to work to look at who my subscriptions are and pre-roast that, because it's a week, so it's not going to be super old, and have that ready to go out. And then no roasting either. I'm going to do my best to really flatline, like, get that reset, get that, winding up the old, turning towards the new, and have that time for product development, because that's super important to me. Anyway, looks like there are no more questions, guys. Thanks for joining the live stream. Don't forget to get your Self-Reliance Festival, selfreliancefestival.com tickets. Also, the Plant Guild workshop is going to be awesome. And tomorrow at 9 a.m. at livingfreeintennessee.com, we are putting the Food Forest event tickets on sale. There are so many events this fall. You could just go on the road. In fact, any of you who I see at all the events we're at, we'll get to know each other really well, because I'm doing like Back to the Land, Plant Guild, Self-Reliance Festival, Food Church Workshop, and then we have the Food Forest install, and the icing on the cake is Jack Spirko's fall workshop. So it's going to be a fun little ride. Hopefully I don't fall off the horse. Make it a great week, guys.